It's no surprise that the current generation of consoles has been underwhelming since launch. They've boasted an insane amount of HD re-releases, uninspired first parties, and just broken games. Just when I thought the PS4 was doomed after the colossal disappointment of the Order 1886, among other failures, I feared it would go back to collecting dust until who knows when. So here arrives Bloodborne, a brutal third-person action RPG by From Software, the developers behind the popular Souls series. Bloodborne is Sony's first opportunity to make the PS4 live up to its "Greatness Awaits" slogan, and it does so in nearly every way. It might be a bit harsh to start off with a negative statement, but let's get this out of the way first. Bloodborne is more like a reskinned Souls sequel than a new IP. As cruel as that sounds, it doesn't change the fact that it's still an excellent game, and frankly the best first-party PS4 game to date. Any way you look at it, From Software was damned no matter what they did. If they kept the same gameplay, item names, descriptions, and icons, then there would be nothing different about Bloodborne. But if they changed all those things, which they did, then we are forced to ask ourselves, what item does what? All over again. Each item looks different, has a different name, and yet accomplishes the same thing as they did in the Souls series. It's not really a big deal, but definitely worth mentioning for anyone curious about a potential learning curve. If you've ever played a Souls game before, you'll feel right at home here. You time your dodges, swing when you can, heal every so often, and then rinse and repeat. Get yourself caught in an enemy's combo string, and unfortunately it's game over. You need to constantly be on your toes for potential ambushes and attacks from large groups. Enemies just love sticking together in Bloodborne, so more often than not, you have to lure them out one by one just to maintain the upper hand. Bloodborne's speed seems to be faster than previous Souls games too, with quicker enemy responses and overall animation. This doesn't really work against you though, because there's been many tweaks to stamina, falling damage, and dodging that will work in your favor. Right off the bat, you'll be able to heal faster, run longer, and roll more frequently before ever applying the first level to your character. If that makes it sound easier, then you're dead wrong, because it's still really hard. In Dark Souls, you would take shelter at bonfires, which are now lanterns in Bloodborne. Bonfires would respawn the enemies and refill your Estus flasks, which were the main healing item in previous Souls games. You couldn't abuse bonfires in Dark Souls 2, though. After killing enemies in any given area 2 or 3 times over, they wouldn't come back unless you'd opt to use an item called a bonfire aesthetic, which brings enemies back and increases their level. In Bloodborne, you can kill enemies as many times as you want. This is most likely to balance the fact that Blood Vials, Bloodborne's main healing item, doesn't come back when you reach a lantern. You actually pick them up from random enemy drops. If you run out, shame on you, because you're going to have to run around killing things until you get them back. Luckily, they're a fairly common drop, and you can collect them as many times as you want. And most of the time, you collect multiple off of an enemy. The combat is a bit different in Bloodborne, along with some different controls. L1 now switches your weapon mode from one-handed to two-handed. Circle runs, and L2 stuns enemies and fires silver bullets if a gun's equipped. Pressing triangle now uses blood vials, and square uses items like molotovs and pebbles. By the way, have fun wasting blood vials while you attempt to switch your weapon to two-handed. It took me hours to get used to that one. Stunning an enemy, which is done by holding L2 at the right time, can buy you some much-needed time to get free hits in before they regain control. And speaking of regain, it's Bloodborne's new system that allows you to get some of your health back by dealing damage immediately after being attacked. When you receive damage, a little white bar will jolt to the left depending on how much damage you received, which leaves health to the right as your regainable life. If you deal damage to an enemy fast enough, I think it's like 4 seconds or so, you can actually get some, if not all, your health back. If you hesitate for too long and the health is gone for good unless you get a healing item. It may seem risky to attack right after being hit, but you are often rewarded for being offensive, and strategic play will leave you victorious in most instances. It will be tough to try anything other than the usual roll away, heal, roll in, and attack dance that seemed to work for most of Souls games in the past. But once you learn to adapt to the Bloodborne gameplay, you'll be hooked even after 50 hours into it. I've always been a fan of From Software's art direction. The city of Yharnam looks absolutely gorgeous by design, from the foggy, wet sewers to the sparkling cobblestone streets and Victorian architecture. The immense scale of Bloodborne becomes apparent shortly after leaving the opening area and taking a look into the sunset. It's a vast landscape just waiting to be explored and conquered. It also helps the game runs at 1080p and looks pretty sharp at all angles, minus a few muddy corners. The game runs at 30 frames per second through and through, so it's not as responsive as I would have liked, but it's pretty easy to get used to after you've played for a couple hours. From Software games never truly look groundbreaking from a graphical and performance standpoint, at least on consoles, and this game naturally has the occasional dip in frame rate when things get rough. But the graphics are nowhere near as on par with what the PS4 can do. But luckily, you'll be too busy exploring and taking in the atmosphere to care very much. The audio, on the other hand, is pretty stellar, with the sounds of blood spewing on the ground after every landed swing, to the splashing of water droplets from puddles, to the enemy growls and wind gusts humming through tight alleys. It all creates a very gothic and terrific atmosphere, and sets the tone for many of the game's incredible enemy and boss designs. Bloodborne's slightly less impressive in the multiplayer and the Chalice Dungeons side of everything. Chalice Dungeons are randomly generated sections that generate based on a ritual performed at one of the headstones in the Hunter's Dream, Bloodborne's main hub. Problem is, it's very possible to end up with some low-level enemies if you fail to carry out new rituals frequently. It's a good addition, but not something I could see extending the life of the game, even with the inclusion of downloadable dungeons from fellow gamers. Invasion works in a very similar fashion as they did in the Souls games, where you use a certain item to ask for assistance from someone, or you can get invaded while you're playing. In this case, you're going to be utilizing bells. I won't give away very much in this area as this review is mostly spoiler-free, but as far as connection quality, it's basically the same experience as Dark Souls. I generally play offline so I won't get my day ruined, and my blood echoes taken from me. And yes, blood echoes are the souls in Bloodborne. It's worth mentioning that Bloodborne has horrendous loading times. It wouldn't matter if it wasn't a game about trial and error deaths, but it is, so prepare to stare at the loading screen a lot. Accessing the Hunter's Dream takes around 20 seconds, whereas the main world takes between 35 and 40 seconds. What makes matters worse is that you have no item descriptions, weapon lore, screenshots, or anything to look at during this process. You just stare blankly at the Bloodborne logo with a black screen in the background. Now let's say the painful loading time is a good enough reason to take the game slow and not take any risks. Well, I'm sorry to say, you actually have to teleport back to the Hunter's Dream if you wish to fast travel anywhere. For example, let's say you're at the first lantern, once again Bloodborne's Bonfire, and you wanted to get to the third lantern deeper into the city. You can't just access the list of lanterns you have discovered. Your only option is to return to the Hunter's Dream. To fast travel in a nutshell, you must return to the hub world, then select the desired location or lantern from a gravestone that acts as the hub's main fast travel mechanism. It's kinda crazy to force any gamer to sit through over a minute of black loading screens just to get across the map. For all of you who have gone through the trouble to install a larger and potentially faster hard drive for your PS4, you'll be in for a treat. On my Seagate 1TB solid-state hybrid drive, I can actually get in the main world from the hub in around 27 seconds instead of the reported 40. Still pretty bad, but at least it's an improvement. Apparently there's a patch on the way that increases frame rate, improves performance, and shaves some seconds off the loading. We can only hope. Having said everything before, if you're even mildly interested in the Souls series, then you most definitely should get this game. The gameplay's fast, it's reactive, and it's thrilling. Adding in blood along with the regain system just makes things better. And then on top of that, putting a gun in my hand gave me more ways to survive a difficult encounter that the Souls series didn't. I loved exploring the world, chatting with the inhabitants, and leveling up my character. It's atmosphere like this that defines the action RPG genre. The graphics aren't mind-blowing and the performance isn't really stellar, but it's a From Software game. You know what you're getting here, and if you're looking for a good challenge and a damn good game that just so happens to be exclusive to PS4, then say goodbye to the next 50 to 100 hours of your life. You won't regret a damn thing.